Welcome to Roots and Wings, the podcast from the Fox Hill School, where we share ideas, insights, and conversations to help your children grow strong and soar high. My name is Melanie Little, and I'm the director at the Fox Hill School. Today, I'm talking with Lindy Myers, who is a pediatric speech-language pathologist and clinical director at Coral Care. Hi, Lindy. Thanks so much for having a conversation with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. The Fox Hill School and Coral Care have started a collaboration this past year, and I'm excited to let everyone know what that entails and how it supports children and families. Can you share a little bit about Coral Care, how it started, and the mission behind it?
Absolutely. So Coral Care kind of came from two different perspectives, meeting in the middle. So Jen, our founder and CEO, was a parent who had experience when her oldest daughter was little, searching for care and having a really challenging time finding it. And then my perspective as a speech language pathologist trying to deliver care in, going into patients' homes in addition to my full-time job. And, Jen's experience was just endless wait lists and rush clinic visits. And I really had started trying to go into patients' homes just to kind of have that extra money. And, I love it. I love what I do. So it was like, what better way to kind of have that additional income than just continuing what I love. But then it was so special to go into the families' homes and really see how kids were making more progress within their own home environment, that natural environment.
Oh, that makes such a difference.
Yeah. And what's kind of fun is that Jen is actually my sister.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And so naturally, as sisters do, we would call each other.
The dynamic
she'd
duo.
complain about what's going on with her daughter, and I would complain about things that were tricky for me as a provider. And so, together, and mostly Jen, of course, she's our founder, said, what if therapy can happen, right within the family's homes with that allows families time and flexibility, and also allows that to the providers. And as a provider, we don't really have any experience with the business side of running your own practice. And so, Jen said, what if we can really take away the business complexities of running your own practice and allow therapists to do what they want to do, deliver care within that natural environment, and let somebody else take care of the rest. So that's kind of what Coral Care
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's how it got started. And we now bring really exceptional speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy right into families' homes. Families are, siblings, dogs, parents, everyone. They were all active participants in the sessions. And yeah, it's been
Because all that goes into who that child is.
Exactly. Yes.
That's great. How do families typically connect with Coral Care, and what can they expect once they do?
Yeah. So families can connect by reaching out through our website. They can be referred by a pediatrician, by a school, or through community partners such as Fox Hill.
Okay.
Once they connect with us, we will match them with a provider based on what they're looking for, speech, OT, or PT. And they'll get started with an evaluation. Goals will be set based on what that provider sees, as well as what's really important and functional to the family. And then the provider will help to build therapy right into daily routines to carry things forward into everyday life. And, we say sessions are in the home, but that could even be, let's meet at the playground, let's meet at the track, let's meet at Starbucks and practice so how do we order a coffee? How do we order a bagel? Like things like that at a restaurant. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the home, just within that, I guess, at Fox Hill, your kids aren't going to be ordering a bagel at Starbucks necessarily.
Right.
Yet, a coffee quite yet. But just within the playground would be a great place to meet a parent.
Right. And so you're really working with the families. You have your part that you're doing your services, but then it's bringing in the family so they can continue the work that you're doing even when you're not there.
Yes, exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That seems super helpful.
It is. Yeah. I mean, we see progress happen so much faster because parents really understand how to implement therapy in their everyday lives. So, for example, if a child is working on the transition from laying down to sitting up with their physical therapist or occupational therapist, they might be at a clinic, and so they're practicing, and the parent gets home and they say, "Oh, where do I even set them up for this? Or my life is so busy. I have a new, this baby that I'm working with and my other kids. But when we go into the home, we say, hey, where do you change your baby's diaper? Let's go upstairs. And every time you change the diaper, let's practice learning how to go from laying down to sitting up within that routine of diaper change. And then it feels so feasible. How many
Oh,
times a day do
wow.
you change a diaper of a child who's learning, who's, in that stage? And so
Exactly.
they get that practice every single day. And then we're graduating kids so much faster than we would in that clinic setting.
Oh, wow. That makes such sense. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that before. Usually we as a preschool, we're referring families to go visit someone like you, and they're seeing you in an office or that kind of setting. But be able to bring that information home and really implement it day to day sounds great. Much harder if you have to improvise and figure out, okay, how am I going to do that myself? Awesome. So why do you think it is so important for children to have access to these services as early as possible?
Yeah. I mean, when kids are little, they're developing a new skill every day. And so if we miss a
That's for sure.
single, even like really small milestone, we can then miss other larger milestones that we're hoping that kid will be needing. So we just want to eliminate all barriers and just work on those that when kids are little, their brains have that neuroplasticity and they can just absorb things and retrain themselves so quickly. And so we just want to get kids to develop the skills that they need to develop on, as close to on time as possible and give parents the tools and strategies that they need. And you know, aside from just the kids being little and let's do it, it's also when your kids are little, parents are nervous about all of this. And so, yeah, we don't want parents to have to wait to get answers. And so it's, I think, meaningful on both sides for the kids and the families.
Absolutely. Along those lines, if you don't mind if I back up just a little bit, we may have some families that actually don't know what speech, what OT, what PT are. Could you give a little, maybe a definition or what those examples would be?
Yes, absolutely. So, speech therapy, I'll start there since that's my expertise. Really, we always argue in the speech therapy community that we should be called communication and feeding therapists.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, and
Oh, so
so
feeding too.
and feeding too. Yeah, so not every speech pathologist does feeding, but have to take a course in grad school, and then if you decide to go down that path, you can.
Okay.
But an occupational therapist do feeding as well. The speech pathologist side of feeding can really be everything, but we think about the part mostly from like when the food goes into the mouth to the swallow, whereas occupational therapy does more of like the scooping, the self feeding type of skill. And then both OT traditionally does more of like the sensory based feeding. So a child who is more selective in what they'll eat and what, maybe what we call like our picky eaters.
I was
A
going to
lot
say
of
that's
like
a very nice
sensory,
way to say it.
yes, and most kids are
Selective.
picky eaters, so
I
that's why
love
we
it.
don't love that terminology. But yeah,
I'm going to use that from now. That's now in my vocabulary. They're selective
selective,
eaters.
yes. And SLPs can work on the more selective sensory stuff as well, but when like more of the sensory system is involved, like more systems. So if they just are struggling to engage, struggling with different textures across the board, not just with food, struggling with moving their bodies too much, too little, that's really where you want the occupational therapist to come in because they can address feeding as well as the larger systems piece. If it's really just around feeding, either OT or speech could do it. Yeah. And then speech would come in like a chewing and swallowing piece as well. And then, yes, speech therapists also, as I said, anything around communication. So, it's not just the words coming out that a lot of people traditionally think around, like, you can't say R sounds, you have like a lot of that frontal lisp with the S sound.
And that's usually what we would notice
Yes,
at school, which would have us refer to you.
absolutely. Yes. Some other things you might,
But it's really so much
yeah,
more than that.
you might see would be like a late talker. a child who is having a hard time following directions or following routines, that would be a great reason to seek a speech pathologist. And we do, for some of our kids who are non-speaking or later to speak, we can use communication devices. So there's a lot, we use sign language. There's lots of different ways that speech pathologists can help, as well as with a social piece. So if you see a child who's struggling with some of that like social pragmatic piece, that's something that a speech pathologist can work on as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so much more than I had originally thought.
Yeah, it's a big field.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then that kind of that preschool age, you'll see that the social pragmatic piece happen like within play. It's where typically that comes up.
Yeah, definitely.
Occupational therapy is also a wide field. Within pediatrics, we mostly see, as I said, around like all of that sensory piece. So children who become dysregulated really frequently, who have a hard time with lights, sounds, textures, as well as getting support for activities of daily living. So that could be toileting, that could be buttoning clothes, brushing their teeth, not getting dressed. So just like those activities that are hard for little kids anyways. And so maybe they need support there. And then with any fine motor tasks. So handwriting, scissors, things like that.
Things like that. And those are usually the things we'll see, but that's great advice to know that even everyday things that kids struggle with, that parents might just think, what am I doing wrong? That they're it's not. You're not doing anything wrong. That some kiddos just need a little extra support.
Absolutely. And a lot of kids who have like really big, behaviors, big tantrums, outbursts, those can be kids who really just need some support and learning how to self-regulate, getting some tools. And so that's really where occupational therapy can be so impactful. And, sometimes at school it's totally missed because kids are really, really good at when they're not at home, kind of
Yes.
masking, putting on like, I am so composed, and then it all
Yep.
falls apart at home. And, going back to like
Hear it
the
all the
why
time.
the home environment is so nice is like at school, at a clinic, kids just know how to pull themselves together. And then when they're just overloaded, it's hard at home. And I love, so Jenna, my sister, the CEO, her younger daughter just, yeah, has some pieces that she needs support around her regulation. And so her OT suggested chewing or giving her gummy worms on her car ride home, so that she can get some like input in her jaw. And that helps to kind of just like tell her body. I mean, I'm not an OT, so I'm probably speaking, not using the correct terminology here, but it helps her to calm down. And then same thing, like going into the home, she's developed a little calm down corner with things that her daughter really bought into and like arranged herself. So when she's feeling now overstimulated, she can go to her calm down corner and she knows exactly what's in there and do it independently, which is also huge for both her daughter and for Jen.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And it's in your home.
in
It's
your
right
home.
where you
She
need
knows
it.
how to access it
So
anytime she needs it.
that's amazing.
Yeah. And then I think physical therapy is probably the one that people are most familiar with, but that's more of our gross motor support. So it can start as early as, our babies who have torticollis. So the tightening in their neck where they might have a preference or rolling over in time. So any of those like earlier developmental milestones up to walking, running, jumping, climbing playgrounds, maybe they're struggling with those swing set in your backyard, or what they're starting kindergarten and they're having trouble. Let's meet at their upcoming kindergarten playground to make sure that when they start school, they can really navigate that safely. So yeah, kind of more of that like larger gross motor piece.
You kind of touched on a couple already, but can you share an example of how early support has made a difference for a specific child or a family? I like Jen's corner that she has in the gummy worms,
Yes. I know.
but would love to hear more about that.
Definitely. Yes. And whenever I'm with her, I'm like, can I still? Yeah. I mean, I have so many examples. I think I love going back to the piece where just kids get really frustrated and we see them fighting friends, hitting friends, some of these things that we expect kids to do just because they're kids and they don't have all the words ever at young ages. But I have so many success stories of kids learning some early signs, learning, how to use picture symbols before they're ready to use verbal speech. And and then having less frustration because if they need help, instead of just screaming or whatever they're doing, they have a sign for help or they can point to a picture that says help and someone understands what they need. Um, and then they see this word help has helped them. And so then they're going to be more likely to say it. And so
Okay.
seeing how picture symbols, how sign language can support them verbal speech and have them actually start talking a little bit earlier. But just like seeing those behaviors kind of come down and kids just get a lot less frustrated and it's better for everybody.
Yes, exactly. That's great.
Yeah.
So this summer, we had speech and OT screenings at the Fox Hill School for our new students who are starting in the fall. Can you elaborate on how else Coral Care and Fox Hill will be partnering to bring these services to our families?
Yes, absolutely. So we're doing these screenings at your school so that we can identify needs early and really support kids where they are now and get in before sometimes even before anybody else is noticing that they could use support. And so by partnering with Fox Hill, we can talk about next steps. So that might look like scheduling a full evaluation. And then, if needed, if warranted, we can provide services. And services can be at home. But again, that natural environment is anywhere the child is. So we could also provide services right at school. And then, but also it could look like providing strategies to your teachers, to the parents that they can use at home right away. And so really, the partnership we want is to make sure that families are feeling supported right away, right from there, like really from the very first question.
That's awesome. And all of this can happen. The evaluation could happen at home. They don't have to necessarily go anywhere.
Nowhere. Yeah.
That's great. And I love that's kind of what drew me to Coral Care was the willingness to help us as teachers too.
Definitely.
Even though we have more years experience than we want to admit, that's not our training. And it's great to get input. We're always learning just like the kids are always learning. So it's great to have supporting us as well.
Yeah. I think for all of us, new things are coming out all the time, new ideas, new materials. So, I'm sure our providers will learn from your teachers and see things in the classrooms that are, wow, like we can really use this going forward. And this is such a great idea. And then at the same time, our providers can do the same for your teachers. So I think it will be, a true partnership in the true definition of that word.
I am very much looking forward to it.
Oh, yes.
So, what do you hope families will take away from knowing this partnership is available?
I think the biggest thing is knowing that they don't have to wait for services. They don't have to figure it out on your own. No concern is too small. There's always, a team at Coral Care ready to listen, ready to guide, support. We have lots of providers who can work with your children, but, we also have a clinical team that will just chat with you and help answer some of those early questions. And so we just really want to make sure that nobody's parenting on their own. Everyone really feels like they have a team.
That's great. Yep. And parents can also obviously reach out to their children's teachers. We're always happy to help. But now we also have the support of Coral Care, and if we don't know what to do, we can refer them to you.
Absolutely.
If a parent listening today wants to learn more or get started, what's the best next step?
Yeah, definitely. So our website is a great place to start. So it's joincoralcare.com. And then they can also just email us directly at hello@joincoralcare.com. And then our patient concierge team can help get you started.
That's amazing. This sounds so great. I'm so excited about this collaboration. We're really just want to support families as much as we can. And as they say, it takes a village. And I'm so happy that Coral Care is going to be part of our village.
Yes. Well, we're so excited to partner with you guys and to meet all the kids that you get to work with every day. It's always the kids are just so fun. And we're really excited.
Well, thank you so much for having conversation with me.
Thanks for
Hopefully
having
we'll
me.
do it again sometime,
Yes, we
maybe
hope
further
so.
down the road when we have some feedback from families and we can follow up on what we've learned and how things are going.
Yes, I would love that.
Awesome. Well, with that, thank you for listening to Roots and Wings from the Fox Hill School. For more resources and upcoming episodes, you can visit foxhill-school.com. See you next time. Thank you, Lindy.
Thank you.